With Gran Turismo 7's latest update of 1.15 bringing the 3 new cars to the game, we have 3 new vehicles to talk about in the game as well. The first one of which being the Suzuki Vision GT car, the car which many of us were trying to figure out what it was, but most of us, unless you had insider knowledge, didn't really have a chance of actually getting right. However, now that it's actually arrived in the game, the chances of liking the car are pretty high, because it's actually really good, and it's one of those vehicles which I would recommend to try out to somebody who doesn't necessarily like Vision GTs, because it's more of just a pure sports car or a concept car in more of a general kind of sense rather than just a Vision GT. And it's actually quite a nice throwback as well to the Suzuki GSX-R 4 concept from Gran Turismo's past, a car which was also powered by the GSX-R or Gixxer series motorbike engine. This one is as well a Suzuki Hayabusa unit. Interestingly though, they chose not to turbocharge it, which usually is the choice to go for with a Hayabusa. They have huge tuning potential when you turbocharge those engines. This one, still running the 1.3 litre motor, around a 1300cc, but putting out over 400 horses without a turbo, no supercharger, and with the weight of only 970 kilos, so less than a metric ton, the horsepower per ton is fantastic. Now with sports hard tyres, or thereabouts, sports tyres in general, the PP level isn't that high either. 611.32 is actually pretty good to work with, and it means that it could at least potentially be a good career mode car. Which again is something you can't say for most Vision GTs. They tend to be crazy high, around 800 or more, laser cars, 400 mile an hour Tomahawks, all that kind of stuff. They're all well and good when there's no limits on the racing, but as soon as restrictions come in, 600 points, 700 points, restrictions on power or weight, they're just not really that useful. So for 1 million credits, this definitely isn't the most affordable choice of career mode racer or vehicle that you can dominate online lobbies with, but it could potentially be a good investment of 1 million if it can make that back. So that is the question. What can this car do? Is it any good? Well, simply put, yes, it's great. And it's kind of strange that the points aren't higher than 611, given that it is so light, so powerful, and, as if that weren't enough, has all-wheel drive as well. So it's actually pretty beginner-friendly. Now, it does like to get its tail out, and it is a higher revving, around 10,000 RPM engine in terms of peak power, so it could easily be a handful, but it's a really nice little car to work with. Some would probably prefer rear-wheel drive, it would be more playful, but then you'd run the risk of it being more like the Mazda RX Vision concept, which is just a drift monster and that's all it really wants to do. In the case of this one though, it's a simple assessment because, yeah, it's a great car, and in terms of raw ability and value, it might even be the standout of the 3, because the new Rampage Camaro is pretty good, but not necessarily the most useful thing around. At the same time though, the Toyota, the hybrid class racer, is 3 million credits, which is a bit cost prohibitive for some people. This one kind of falls in between. It's not crazy expensive, but it's kind of expensive, but you can also use it to win races with. So you can use it at Le Mans, for example. You could use it as a cash cow car if you wanted to, and in terms of tuning, for those who are curious, you can change a couple of things on the suspension, such as the dampers. You can change the tyres as well, which is great, and you can fit the ballast and power restrictor, so you can at least play around, get into lower point events, certainly higher point events as well. So yes, you can use it to race with. Now, I will say, it's a good thing that it is a good car, a strong car, because you can't really tune anything else. So, the usual Vision GT problem, in other words. But when you've got a car that's already good, like a Tomahawk for example, if you couldn't tune that, it would still be a formidable opponent. This one, thankfully, is already good. Aside from that, there's not really a huge amount to say. It's just a really nice little unexpected surprise. We do also know that there is a Group 3 racing version of this coming to the game as well, which will probably be different in a number of ways. I doubt that that one would have all-wheel drive. It would be pretty OP if it did, and it's interesting to see them build out the lineup of Suzuki in terms of being these esports side of the game, not just the Swift, but we've got, of course, the Group 4 Swift, now this, and the Group 3 version of this coming whenever. So Suzuki becoming kind of a little force to be reckoned with, given that the Swift is already a great little race car. When the AI uses it, it's usually the front of the pack. This one will doubtless be good in Group 3 form, and depending how big the body kit and the aero is on it, it could be quite a small, nimble Group 3 contender, kind of Alfa Romeo 4C style. So I'm actually pretty keen to see what that one can do. Ultimately, it's a fantastic little throwback to the GSX-R4 combined with the flair of the Vision Gran Turismo program and a little bit of Suzuki S2 concept vibe to it. What of course would ultimately become the Suzuki Swift. Again, used to be in Gran Turismo, fantastic little hot hatch, and now we have the actual production model of the Swift. So yeah, across the board, it's a lovely new addition. There are tons of people who just don't care about Vision GTs, but I would say if you're trying to convince someone to try one out, tell them to try this one. It's a really good little contender, it's tons of fun. Of course, it sounds great with a bike engine as well, and the only issue which could arise with a bike engine swap is sometimes a lack of torque. This doesn't suffer from that at all. It's got great responsiveness, great cornering, and the fact that the weight is so low certainly helps with that. So ultimately, that's it for my thoughts on the Suzuki Vision Gran Turismo car. Of course, if you've already bought it, tell me your thoughts down below. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And maybe if this kind of won you over a little bit to liking a Vision GT if you weren't usually a fan, then by all means tell me about that down below as well. And of course, stick around on the channel for features of the other two new cars, as well as maybe some tuning thrown in there as well for good measure. But until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.